Dive Search and Rescue by Alexis Haddad, Brittany Armstrong, and Caitlin Odell. Dive Search and Rescue and Dive Search and Recovery, while following a similar premise, differ in that Search and Rescue's primary focus is saving a life, and may be more aggressive and specialized, whereas Recovery focuses on finding already deceased or assumed to be deceased bodies. Recovery dives will typically be slower and more methodical. Often known as police diving, search and rescue and search and recovery teams are typically classified as public safety or forensic divers, starting in 1977 and expanding in the 1980s, with training and certification being developed. The duties that are carried out by police divers include diving for underwater casualties under the general classification of public safety diving and forensic diving, which is search and recovery. Police diving includes forensic diving and public safety diving and is the recovery of evidence from underwater, which may include underwater searches, evidence recovery, submerged body recoveries, anti-narcotics operations, anti-terrorism operations, search and rescue operations, and other maritime law enforcement. Forensic divers are professional divers who gather evidence for use in investigations and legal cases. Both police and forensic divers may face hazards such as structures, debris, or industrial pollution, as well as hazards related to weather, climate, and currents. Public safety diving is underwater diving that is conducted as part of law enforcement and fire/rescue. Public safety divers respond to emergencies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and may be required to dive in the middle of the night, during inclement weather, in zero visibility black water, or in waters polluted by chemicals and biohazards. Public safety divers must go through specialized training in order to conduct searches in often less than enjoyable conditions. Side-scan sonar can scan several hundred feet of ocean, lake, or river bottom using acoustic beams reflecting off objects to create vivid color images. Try saying this 5 times fast. Scan 650 sector scanning sonar uses reflected sound waves to create images displayed on a computer. Underwater search and recovery missions are time-sensitive operations and are often performed in extremely challenging conditions. In an emergency situation, the first people to enter the water are fire rescue, police dive teams, or public safety dive teams. From ice searches to evidence retrieval in high-current waters to port security and hull inspections, there are many conditions that pose a threat to our divers. With a remote-operated vehicle, divers can search deeper depths and locate critical areas, which allow for an efficient use of time and ability to narrow in on specific areas. If you attach a scanning sonar to a remote-operated vehicle, you now have an ultimate vehicle to search in any type of water, regardless of clarity. Technology plays a role in limiting dangers by using a remote-operated vehicle to help mitigate some risks of diving, such as divers taking multiple breaks in between dives and have time to decompress. Underwater metal detectors can be used as an essential piece of equipment for any police department, fire department, or military team that is involved with locating missing evidence. Metal detectors can detect a variety of items such as shell casings, handguns, rifles, shotguns, knives, cell phones, UXO, mines, and any type of explosive device containing metal. Underwater metal detectors will not give a false detection signal from saltwater, coral, high iron rocks, or other ground mineralization as other detectors do. Here is some other equipment that can be used in search and rescue and search and recovery dives. There are 5 types of search patterns. An arc search is typically used for large objects or uneven terrain. A spiral search is good for situations with low visibility. A grid search is going to typically be used when looking for smaller objects. A line search is going to be when divers move along a fixed line, maintaining a consistent distance apart, allowing a linear search pattern. A jack-stay search is typically used in deep waters or when searching a large area. Divers can locate and retrieve a missing person in a shallow body of water, which requires specialized techniques due to the limited depth and potential for obstacles like rock or uneven terrain. Search patterns, line management, visibility challenges, and safety considerations all have to be taken into account before a shallow water dive search and rescue takes place. In a shallow water dive search and rescue, this procedure must be followed. An initial assessment must be made, there must be time for team setup, and then entry and search and target identification begin. Proper training, equipment selection, buddy systems, and weather conditions also need to be considered. In deepwater dive search and rescue, there are key elements. Through pre-dive planning, utilizing specialized equipment like sonar and remote-operated vehicles, employing systematic search patterns, strict decompression protocols due to depth, highly trained rescue divers, safety, and communication with the surface support team. Divers also need to consider the increased risks associated with deep diving, like decompression sickness and nitrogen narcosis. Some search techniques used on deepwater dives include systematic search patterns, sonar and remote-operated vehicles, and guidelines and markers. Some procedures used on deepwater dives are deep diving training, buddy systems, and gas management. Deepwater rescue operations must have an immediate assessment, a controlled ascent, and surface support. Some important considerations for deepwater dive search and rescue are decompression sickness risk, environmental factors, time constraints, and communication. Our team was fortunate enough to interview Chief Swanson from Lake County Fire Rescue, as well as Robert Wyell, who worked with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and Search 93 to tell their stories. Chief Swanson has over 30 years in the fire service and has been a diver since he was 18 years old, with over 500 logged dives. Wyell has over 15 years in the field, the majority of it being recovery missions. Here is a story from Chief Swanson. One of the most impactful incidents that I worked in my career was a dive. I was sent in to search and try to save a family in a car that went in the water off Alligator Alley. I distinctly to this day remember swimming up to the window of the vehicle and looking in, shocked to see the face of a man looking out at me with his eyes open. He was dead, but appeared to have tried to get out of the vehicle, and the weeds and vacuum pressure held the door shut on him. When I popped the window with a punch, he floated out to me, and I quickly took him to the surface and shore, where my team began CPR and everything else they could do for him. As the water was cold, we had hopes of resuscitating him. Now, the part of this call that gets rough is when the dive master approached me and told me that there were kids in the car. I returned, went back to the back window, and saw toys and such pressed against the window. I still remember the shock and fear of what I would find. I punched the window, and as everything floated past me, I started a frantic search. When I touched a car seat, my body froze. Please know that it was virtually zero visibility. As I reached around the side of the car seat, I found myself holding my breath, and diving that is a dangerous thing. The seat was empty, and I became frantic, tearing through the whole car. I surfaced and told them I couldn't find any kids. They told me to start searching the area out and around the vehicle, as they may not have been in their car seats. The family reported that the dad allowed them to roam the car on long trips. After multiple submersions, I was signaled to return to shore. When I returned to shore, they informed me that they found the kids. Dad had dropped them off at grandmother's. They were all okay and accounted for. We also asked both Chief Swanson and Wyell in what situations would someone calling 911 need a search and recovery team. When asked how the work impacted him, Wyell responded, "I was mostly involved in the recovery end of things. I was most often called in when someone was lost in a body of water. It was always upsetting getting called to help recover a body, but it was ultimately rewarding when the person was recovered. I always felt good letting family have a sense of closure." Specialized rescue. A person underwater or stranded in a natural setting or a man-made structure that is not intended for domestic use. An example of a specialized rescue would be a rescue team using ropes and inflatable rescue devices to pull someone out of a crashing and raging river. A non-specialized rescue would be a person underwater in a man-made or domesticated structure. An example would be a lifeguard using a rescue tube to reach a struggling swimmer in a swimming pool. Protocols are used in Lake County Fire Rescue communications that help dispatchers and call takers. Protocols are used in Lake County Fire Rescue communications that help dispatchers and call takers to help victims while keeping the caller safe. A call taker who uses the protocols are trained through coursework, interactive classes, and a protocol exam. This protocol provides instructions and questions for calls regarding drowning victims. This protocol includes scene safety instructions and life support instructions along with rules, axioms, and definitions that are useful while helping a caller through these situations. Some questions, rules, and instructions include: do not go in the water unless it is safe to do so. Swift water, any body of water that is moving and has a visible current. Diving, to jump or plunge into water from a height, and victims of cold water drowning can remain underwater for long periods of time before death or brain damage occurs. This EFD protocol assists the emergency fire dispatchers to ask in-depth questions in order to gather the most accurate information possible, mainly about patient location due to these areas often being remote. This protocol also includes questions for body recovery situations. This protocol defines the different types of water, swift, coastal, inland, and oceanic, and provides the dispatcher instructions to help persons in every situation and any types of these waters. Here are some of the directions and questions. EFD also has sinking vehicle protocol. This is a very in-depth protocol that will guide a caller whose vehicle is actively sinking to get out of the car to safety. In this protocol, we help the caller stay calm, ask them questions, and give them instructions to help them escape safely. Some questions are: can you open a rear side window all the way? Can you open the front side window all the way? And do you have a hammer, center punch, or anything heavy and hard to break the window with? We guide them through each step of this process, whether their answer is yes or no. Within this protocol, we also have instructions to give the caller if they cannot swim, if they have multiple people with them, if the vehicle is completely underwater, and even if the vehicle is in flood water. CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. This is a procedure done when an individual does not have a pulse or when they do not have effective breathing. CPR is done by doing chest compressions on a patient to regulate blood flow to the brain, along with delivering rescue breaths. Rescue breaths are especially important in drowning victims in order to clear and maintain the patient's airway. An AED is an automated external defibrillator. AEDs are used to analyze heart rhythms and shock a patient if necessary in order to convert them back into a normal heart rhythm during cardiac arrest. The EMD protocol gives extensive and in-depth instructions on how to perform CPR and use an AED. This protocol even helps a caller troubleshoot an AED if it is giving an error code. Knowledge and familiarity with these protocols, or even knowing CPR and knowing how to use an AED as a civilian, is especially important to increase the outcome of a drowning victim. Decompression sickness is a potentially life-threatening condition that can be caused from divers ascending too quickly from a dive. This is caused by increased pressure forming gases like nitrogen in the body's tissue. When ascending too quickly, pressure decreases, which forces these gases to form bubbles in the tissue. These bubbles can block blood flow, damage vessels, and cause inflammation. What decompression sickness looks like: joint and muscle pain, fatigue, paralysis, rashes, numbness, and poor coordination or balance. Law enforcement agencies are often connected with dive search and recovery situations. Some reasons law enforcement would be involved in these situations could be missing persons, missing cars, and evidence recovery. There are also some Border Patrol dive teams that will conduct dive to inspect under vessels for narcotics, explosives, or other illegal items under the hulls of ships.